First, Tony. Thank you for taking the time to share my story. This happened just last year, 2021. I was in a 22-year marriage and my wife at the time went out on the so-called girls' night out. She did these so-called girls' nights quite a few times. My wife and I had a fairly decent relationship. We have good careers. I own and operate a sign business and she, believe it or not, owns her own nail salon. Her father helped her many years ago with the financing. Shortly after we were married. Many years ago, we have one daughter who is on her own, who just finished college and is now working as a manager at Starbucks. I have a wonderful relationship with my daughter. We often do things together, have coffee, lunch, or even a movie or two, especially when her mother is working and cancels plans with her. My wife has a circle of friends she's had for many years. They hang out every so often. She would go out with them, but she came home at a decent time. Recently, her group of friends welcomed some new ladies into the group. I don't know anything about them. Well, one night she said she was going to go hang out with the girls after closing her shop. I was tired. So I just went to bed and thought nothing of it. Then around 2 a.m. she came in, obviously intoxicated. She was not alone. I asked her what happened and who the woman was that followed her into our house. She was crying, saying that she didn't want to drive home drunk. It was too far for her to drive and begged my wife to take her in and let her sleep it off. I was surprised at first, but then I understood that this woman just needed to sleep off the alcohol. My wife at the time didn't want her driving home. Plus, we had a spare room. So after that night, my wife took her to her car the next day and she got home safe and sound. But I kept wondering, who was she? And why did my wife bring her in? She could have easily called an Uber to get home. I didn't think any more about it. I just figured she was helping someone in need and didn't want to see this young lady get into any trouble since they were all hanging out anyway. Fast forward a few weeks. And my wife tells me she is hanging out with the girls again. I said, have fun. But in the back of my mind I thought she is starting to make this a habit just a year prior. She wasn't going out at all after work. She often complained about the long days at her nail salon. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to seem like I was keeping tabs on her or seem controlling. We were married for 22 years, so it's never ever been an issue anyway. I didn't notice she was starting to come home later and later. Every time she would come home later, I would make some type of sarcastic comment. And to my surprise, she didn't say anything. She just kept going out with the girls after 22 years of marriage. This behavior of her going out more than 2 or 3 times a week with the girls with the husband at home. In my observation was sudden and I was going to say something to her about it. The next day after work, I went to her salon to chat with her about it. I didn't wait for her to get home. I was going to ask her what was going on. I told her it was concerning me that she was going out a lot with the girls. I simply asked her what changed and why all of a sudden she is going out so much. She told me that the girls were really nice to her and they made her feel appreciated and special. It was something she never felt before and the girls felt genuine. So being around them gave her a sense of belonging. I could understand where she was coming from and I didn't want to take away from her newfound happiness with their friends. We hugged each other. I told her I loved her and left her salon, but I still had this feeling that something was not right. For the next 2 nights, my wife came home after work. She didn't go out and we actually had a few days where we enjoyed each other. But I could tell she was a little preoccupied with her phone. To my surprise, she just started using a couple of social media apps. I believe Instagram was one and Snapchat was the other, and Facebook on occasion. The following week, it started all over again. But this time she didn't even tell me she was going anywhere after work. I was done with that. I found out looking at her Facebook and it said girls' night. I need more fun in my life. You should have seen the expression on my face after seeing that post. It was about 7 p.m. Her shop was closing in an hour. So I drove up there and lo and behold, she was not there. The girls she usually hangs out with, mostly her coworkers, looked at me like they saw a ghost. I asked where she was and all I got was she went out for lunch and should be back in a little while. All I said was okay. I walked out, walked to my car and left the parking lot, but I did not leave the area. I parked in a spot where no one could see me. Well, a little while came and went, the girls closed the shop and my wife never came back. I drove home thinking my marriage is about to end and we live in Arkansas. So my first thought was to hire a private investigator, but I quickly learned that Arkansas is a fault-based divorce state, so this could get messy. But I had this burning desire to find out what the hell was going on with her. At about 3 in the morning, she come strolling in, I was in bed and she took a shower, hopped in bed and she gave me a kiss on the cheek. Fast forward to about 10 a.m. she is still asleep and her phone is going off like crazy. So I go to pick it up. I swear to you, that woman moved so fast. I couldn't believe it. She took the phone out of my hand and asked what was I doing. I looked at her and didn't say anything. I walked out, I knew something was going on. Then I left the house to go to my shop. She was blowing up my phone, calling and even sending text messages. I didn't answer. So I called a few lawyers here in the state of Arkansas to get a free consultation regarding divorce and how to go about it if I chose to do so. The lawyer said I had a few options: find out the truth on my own and confront her with it, or hire someone to get eyes on her and follow her around. I also asked a lawyer about alimony and finances since we make about the same amount of money, and she told me the quote would make a decision based on the findings. I decided to hire someone to follow her and get proof of what was going on. I wanted to know for sure so I can confront her with it and move forward. So I hired a private investigator who specialized in marriage infidelity cases. This private investigator is a woman and I told her what my suspicions were. She was taken aback by my wife's behavior in such a long marriage. The private investigator also told me she wasn't really doing girls' night out. She was pretending to go out with him. She said they would meet at the clubs, but my wife didn't even stay 15 minutes before she left with someone. My private investigator was able to obtain phone records, videos and photos of her with these men. I was in shock after getting all of this information. I went back to the attorney and asked her what my chances were of getting out of this marriage without losing my shirt. She said again, the court will look at everything including the length of the marriage and your assets. My wife made just over $115,000 last year and my salary was just under $125,000 and we had a house that was paid for. Now, I had to deal with the heartbreaking news to my daughter. She has no idea. Fast forward a week. And I waited for my wife to leave one morning to go to work. When she left, I started packing my things and I made some phone calls. I ended up finding an Airbnb about 40 minutes away from the house and my business. As the day progresses, I am scrambling to get my stuff, put some in storage, prepare a packet and give it to my wife while all this is going on. I had my attorney filed for divorce on the basis of infidelity and I typed out a long letter and I had planned to drop it off at my wife's business at about 8:30 p.m. I get a call from my wife and she says she was going to hang out with one of the girls after work again. I rushed to her business. But to my surprise, everyone was already gone. So I just slid the letter through the slit in her door. After that, I went to my Airbnb temporarily until the divorce was finalized. The next day, I received a barrage of phone calls and text messages from my wife saying, "Please don't do this. She is sorry and please come back home." I simply replied, "We are done. I will see you in court." She went ballistic after that, and her next words were, "Screw you." Then that was the last time I heard from her until the court date at the divorce hearing. I presented all of the evidence I had obtained. And my wife's attorney also asked for a settlement amount. The judge concluded that she was indeed unfaithful after viewing the evidence, and he ordered us to sell the house and split the equity. She really didn't try to get alimony. All she was concerned about was the house, but we had to sell it when my daughter found out. She was devastated. She basically alienated her mom out of her life. But I don't know how long that's going to last. After the divorce hearing, we put the house on the market. My ex-wife made off with damn near $100,000 and I got about the same. This ordeal tore me up inside. I know a lot of people will say, "Why didn't you reconcile? You were married for 22 years. Well, my response would have been, if someone loves you, they won't betray you, plain and simple. My daughter has reached out to me and told me her mom has called her crying, apologizing, but she will not talk to her. About 2 months later, I drive by my ex-wife's nail shop and there is a for sale sign in the window. I didn't see her car. So I was curious when I walked in. I just said for sale. One of the girls said she was moving. That's why she's selling her business. I left her salon and told my daughter to try and call and talk to her mother. My daughter simply didn't care. She was moving. I told her you can't alienate her forever. My daughter said I am just not ready to forgive her. I have never posted on any kind of forum. Someone told me about Tony's channel, saw some of the stories and decided to share mine in hopes you don't make the same mistake. I did. My mistake was not getting out of the marriage sooner. Tony made a comment in one of his videos. He said long-term marriages are not immune to infidelity. He was right. I had this mindset that we were married for over 2 decades. My marriage was solid. Girls' night easily destroyed my 20